Okay, are we live? Okay, I'd say we're live. Hi and welcome. You're listening to At This Moment. I'm Helena Phoenix, and I'm going to be your host for the next 2 hours, filling in for the one and the only legendary Angela Black. Angela is out on her missions. She's got her geoengineering event, and she has graciously asked me to fill in for her. So I'm very honoured to be here. And let's see, I've got a very special guest on tonight, but I'm going to cover some station business before we get into the show. And I can assure you, the next 2 hours is going to be explosive, at the very least. So I have MrRho with me. MrRho, can you hear me?
I can. How is everybody this evening?
Great. We've got our guest on with us as well. So I'll cue Cameron in a moment. So I'll just get some station business out of the way. But I want to say thanks to MrRho for producing for me. For some reason, MrRho is just always there when I need him. And by the way, MrRho, that last show of yours on reality extraction with Matthew Powland was extraordinary. And thank you.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I'm sure it was a little bit controversial for some, but sometimes that makes good radio. So thank you for the compliment.
That's okay. I did do some fancy footwork in the background, finding Matthew, and I thought of a few people to introduce him to, MrRho, and really you, and there's someone else. Actually, she's usually the host of this show. Were the two people I thought of when I thought of who am I going to introduce him to from Revolution Radio. So I definitely think I made the right decision. So
Thank you very much for making that whole interview possible. Because definitely without your assistance, that would not have taken place. So definitely appreciate that, Helena.
Well, Matthew is to me, from the work I've seen him do, and at the very least, he's an extraordinary artist. He really is incredible. But he's a true Renaissance man, and I think his voice needs to be heard. And I like him. I trust the work he's doing, and I thought that was just. I know it was pre-recorded. It was just. I didn't get to hear all of it, but I got to hear most of it, and it really was extraordinary. Now, we're not taking calls tonight because, like I said, we've got a very special guest on tonight, and I already got a caller trying to call me, and I'm not producing anyway. So don't try to call anyone, call in today because, like I said, there's a guest, and we're just going to be rolling for 2 hours. Like I said, it's going to be very explosive, and I know I'm going to be building this up, but I've got to get a bit of station bizzo out of the way, and then I'll bring my guest in. If we are 100% listener supported here at Revolution Radio, and we have been for years. We've existed via donations for like 4 or 5 years now. So if you care to make a donation and keep this unique and very needed radio station going, you can make your way to freedomslips.com and donate there. And thank you in advance. Now, I'm reporting here from my Melbourne studio in Australia. It's actually 12 p.m. lunchtime here on the 14th of August. And I understand it's actually yesterday for you, anyone in the United States. Okay, now without any further ado, I want to introduce my guest, but I'm going to read a little bio to kind of create the backdrop for what the essence of today's show is going to be about. So my guest is Cameron Clark. Now, Cameron, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You sound great. Now, Cameron, if you don't mind, I'm going to read your little bio and then to give the listeners a backdrop, because I know you're no stranger to radio, but you're the first time here at Rev Radio, so I really want to exaggerate as to who you are and why you're here. So I'm going to roll with that and then bring you in. Is that okay?
Of course. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. So these are Cameron Clark's words. So I'm just going to read this out, and people get an idea of who she is. And okay, Olive, if you can hear me, I can't take your calls right now, and even if I could take calls, it'd be MrRho. But this is going to be a guest show with no callers today. Sorry, Olive, I'll talk to you later. Okay, so this is Cameron Clark's words. I spent about a year of my life following the teachings of the self-proclaimed spiritual leader of the New Age movement, Teal Swan. 6 months after initially stumbling onto Teal's YouTube channel in 2012, I had become one of her most dedicated followers. In the 6 months that followed, I moved to Utah to live with the volunteer for Teal's organization, which was claiming to be aimed at creating positive world change. The reason I moved to Utah was because I was tired of the empty, cutthroat corporate culture I had been working for in the past 5 years. I had been working 50 to 60 hours a week straight out of college as a manager for a Fortune 500. Olive, stop calling me, please. Fortune 500. Fortune 500 company. When I suddenly lost my job, I was in a vulnerable stage of transition, and I saw it as a sign and an opportunity to do something more meaningful with my life. This world we live in has never felt quite right to me. Things feel very upside down and backwards, and I was just looking for some place to belong. I was naively hoping to work with like-minded individuals who also envisioned a world that isn't run on the principles of hierarchy, materialism, and consumerism. Unfortunately, I found myself in a group of very wounded individuals with poor boundaries. Little did I know that at that time, this intentional community in Utah had all the makings of a cult, with a charismatic, mentally ill, narcissist at the helm. Under Till's unscrupulous tutelage, I witnessed how quickly a group of people could devolve into fame and money, obsessed with psychopaths. Psychophants concerned. Why did I see psychopaths there? Freudian sleep. Concerned with superficial idol worship, unhealthy sexual dynamics, and no regard for truth. After fleeing the insanity surrounding Teal and her followers living in Utah, I set out on a journey to take back my mind and understand what it was that allowed myself and allowed others to fall prey to gurus and cults. I started to question why it is that people are so willing to hand themselves over to group think, organizations led by people claiming to be authorities. I began to observe that the root of this problem goes deeper than I even realized. This is a subject I'm very passionate about, and by sharing what I discovered and observed over the course of my experience with Teal, I'm hoping to help raise awareness of this issue. Now, I hope I've very concisely explained what we're dealing with tonight, and how our special guest has had direct experience with this situation. So, Cameron, welcome. Thanks for joining us here on Revolution Radio at this moment. So, Cameron,
Hi.
are you there? Hi. Now, I've got a little bit of noise in the background, and hopefully my daughter's going to go to sleep very soon. But Cameron, welcome. Now, after reading that, you and I have spent some time together. We've had a lot of meetings. We've become, I'd say, quite good friends, and you have definitely got a lot of information to bring to the table. Now, you're working in cult awareness with a few other people at this stage, and we'll talk about that more later. But I'd like to disclose a lot of the information and the experience that you had being part of this cult. So please go ahead and feel free to go in any direction you feel is needed.
Sure. Well, I think you did a good job there. That's pretty much the summary statement. I definitely, it was quite a journey. I'm certainly hoping to raise awareness on this particular woman, and it's not. It's mostly just to let people know that she's a microcosm of a much larger issue. So, that being said, I could talk about the experience. I could talk about the dangers of the minds of the types of people that try to lead these types of movements. Or I mean, there are several different directions we could go with it. What do you prefer?
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about who Teal Swan is. Now, I've known who she is now for about 3 months, and I've been very, very quiet about her name as to not give her any publicity whatsoever. And the only reason I feel confident to speak publicly about her now is because of people like yourself, Cameron. So, and I'm sure after this show, if people don't know who Teal Swan is, they're going to go look at who she is. And I hope you do, because after you hear what Cameron has to say, you're going to know what you're dealing with. So, Cameron, how did you find this woman, Teal? Who is she claiming to be, for starters? So, how did you find this, and how did you find her?
Oh, okay. Well, I found her online on her YouTube videos. She's got quite a wealth of, I'd say, quite a body of work out there on the internet that people can find, and you just kind of are searching for answers, searching for something to make you feel better. She's reaching out to vulnerable people with these videos. Spiritual teachings is what she calls them, and I think she's marketing herself as an abuse and trauma survivor, but she has all these extrasensory abilities which make her superhuman, and she's, she can predict the future, and she can see the past. She knows people's past lives. She's an extraterrestrial being from the planet Arcturus in her higher self, and she's just claiming to be all of these amazing things, and it's hooking a lot of people internationally, I would say, around the world. They're actually buying into this narrative of hers, which is that she's survived 13 years of satanic ritual abuse because of her abilities that she was born with. And this is it's really disturbing in so many levels, because, I mean, she's coming across as very believable. And that's what I found when I first stumbled onto her, is that she seemed believable. And so that's how I kind of started off with my journey. I got hooked into the videos. I got hooked into her material. I listened to her workshops online, and I read her book, and I went to eventually her workshop and was sort of recruited or pulled into this intentional community down in Utah.
Okay, now what alerted me? Okay, long story very short. I saw a video of her. Someone posted on my Facebook, so I went and checked out this woman because the title of her video was, she was being interviewed because she had been a survivor of satanic ritual abuse. Now, anyone who's in this circle of information and traffic in the information that we do, there's a lot of us in the quote unquote truther movement who are very interested and are very concerned about the whole ritual satanic child abuse situation. So that's what steered me there. Now, after further investigation, I mean, she makes some serious claims about what was being done to her as when she was a child, and that's what brought me interested in her work. So I had a little look around, but what it caused the red flags for me was this. She does seminars and kind of talks to the camera as to not being a victim. I mean, she's a perfect example of how to overcome being a victim. Look at me. I've survived being a victim of satanic ritual abuse, and I'm talking the darkest type is the type that this woman describes, which is very questionable, but I don't know if we can discuss that right now. And what alerted me was the fact that she comes across very strong. But after listening to an interview with you, Cameron, I listened to a 5-hour interview of your experience living with this woman. It turns out that her public persona and what she's actually trying to present herself to be isn't in fact what she really is behind closed doors. Now, do you care to discuss what happened when you actually went and lived with her?
Yeah, where do you want me to start? I mean, it was just it was insanity, pure insanity. I've never met a crazier, more unstable person in my entire life, but I can't say that it's because of abuse. I just find her to be mentally ill in my opinion, she's just very manipulative, pathologically manipulative. She's a fabulist and a confabulator, and she really, I would call her a mythomaniac. She makes up stories. It's definitely being around her it's like being in a crazy ward. She is so incongruent with her teachings. It's staggering. And they're not even her teachings. She's just, she's stolen so many things, and she Googles everything. I mean, none of her material is new material. She's hybridized versions of crap And I didn't know this at the time because I was very new to spirituality. But as I've dug more into these teachings that she proffers, none of it's original. And so being around her and seeing somebody that was just so incongruent. I mean, the first day that I got there, she's talking about, I mean, she hasn't even gotten divorced from her husband, and she's talking about having a baby with her new live-in boyfriend. And she was just kind of out of it, just crazy. And looking at the grocery store, she's pretending she can see the vibrations on vegetables, and just, one of those people that you're like, what did I just get myself into here?
And she actually, she claims that she needs, and we're going to, and that's just the tip of the iceberg here, because again, after what I heard, the 5-hour interview with you, Cameron, I was just, and I believed every word you said, by the way, and that's why I contacted you, because there's just no doubt in my mind that anything that you saw and experienced was not true. I had no doubt that it was true. Now, she claims, well, she actually has people to plug things into the wall for her because she's afraid of getting an electric shock. Is that right? She's got like minions that do things for her.
Yes, that was her. I saw this after I left because I found this so ridiculous. She claims that the electroshocks from her abuse in this trailer that she did for her documentary forced her now to have people plug her appliances in this documentary. But it's a total performance act for the camera, because when I was there, I actually had seen her plug things in many times without so much as a pause, including her blow dryer, her cell phone, laptop. And so this documentary that they're doing, or this trailer that where she has people plugging things into the wall for her, and she's pretending to have PTSD from all of her trauma. I mean, not only does it not attest to the effectiveness of her techniques and her methods, but it's just complete fabrication. It's just a total act for the camera. So to me, it's just a joke when I see those things now. But I mean, of course, people are really, really sucked into the story, and they want to believe that this is
well, Cameron, I don't know how she's getting away with two diametrically opposed ideas. So in one way, she's saying you don't need to be a victim anymore. You can, through spirituality, you can find your way out of victim consciousness. And then in another way, she needs to promote herself as an extreme victim. How do you explain that diametrically opposed insanity?
That's exactly what she is. She's a cognitive dissonance factory. Okay, all of her followers she keeps people in their emotional centers, and their logical centers become disabled. So she's able to be a hypocrite. She's able to not walk her talk. She's able to get exalted for her shadows and pretty much encouraged for her insanity. And at the same time, she's claiming to show people the way out. And then she's actually creating more insanity in the process. So to me, it's a study in itself. If you actually look at her videos and watch how she operates in real life, and you even just see her face and voice and in the videos that she does, her body language, face, and voice are totally incongruent with how, just a person looking at that is thrown into cognitive dissonance just watching a video. And she goes into these stories and her past, and there's no accountability because people aren't thinking.
So let's set the stage. So you discovered her in 2012 on YouTube, and then, through a series of events, you find yourself moving out of where you once lived and moving to Utah, not far from her home. Is that right?
Right. I'd moved into an apartment less than, I'd say it was 2 minutes driving away, but it was probably 5 minutes if you were in traffic. Yeah. And it just kind of just fell into that apartment when I was looking for places to live, and it just happened to be close. So I was really caught up in the mindset of law of attraction. I'm supposed to be there. Everything's working out perfectly. And I showed up at her house, and it was like an indoctrination process.
So what happened then when you ended up on her house, and how did you feel? What did you feel when you first met her? Are you able to go through that?
Sure, if you'd like. It's hard for me to start here. So I guess the first time that
you start wherever you want, like wherever you feel is the best place to go, you go there.
Okay, well, I just noticed that she was extremely manipulative, especially sexually manipulative, with the new boyfriend that she had, she was constantly talking about sex. I mean, from the day one, that's all she was focused on, was talking about, how many times a day, and, what he does, and choking and bruises, and how she wants to have a baby, and she gets turned on by this and that. And it was just this constant state of foreplay in her mind. So to me, that seemed very unhealthy. And I was just like, what's going on? I'm not sure about this. And then it kind of, from there, we were volunteers. We kind of didn't deal with her too much at the beginning because she was supposedly having all these issues upstairs in her bedroom during the first 2 weeks that I was there. But we were working with, there were two other girls that moved down there at the same time I did, and we were working with her boyfriend and Blake, her right-hand man and marketer, to try to help organize basically her business so that we could get her into these workshops and start scheduling her interviews and taking care of her son, because she really is not a hands-on parent with her son. She's never been left alone with him, and she claims it's because of these seizures that she has. But she's a parent when it was convenient, when it was fun. She would say hi or give him a hug or affection. But if it was difficult, or it was tedious, or he needed a diaper changed or a bath, she was nowhere to be found. So these are the kind of things that I'm picking up on while we're there. We're just like, okay, her life is a mess. She's really, this is nothing like we would envisioned, and she would not be doing what she's doing if she didn't have people behind her. Go ahead.
Okay, just to interrupt you there and continue with your stream of thought. So you're going to stay with this woman, help this woman out, thinking that she's that she's genuinely a guru, that somehow she has figured out her life, she's got the answers. Hence, I'm Karen, and I'm going to go help this cause and help this movement. So that was your intention, and then you see what you're seeing here. Is that a correct comment to make?
Yes, I get there and I was completely shocked. All right, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. So continue with what else you saw. I just need to put in that little side note.
Yeah, no problem. That's definitely how it started out, and then it slowly was a disillusionment process where I'm there, I'd invested, I'd moved down there, and then I was slowly I was in a cognitive dissonance phase myself, I'll admit, where I'd believed all these things, but what I was seeing wasn't lining up with what I was believing. So for me, I kind of trudged along because I had made friends with these other people, and I'd had an apartment, I had a lease, I'd kind of done everything, ditched effort, and moved down there. And then I get there, and it's just it was a lot to just kind of jump ship right away. And it was a slippery slope. I just started getting further into it before I got out. But just from my initial observations, everything in my body was saying that something is wrong here. Something is not right here. And all the things that I was observing, at first I was ignoring. I was brushing it aside. I was explaining it away. But in hindsight and looking at everything, it was an extreme cognitive dissonance phase that I was going through at that first I'd say couple months.
Okay, and what was one of the strangest experiences you had while you were in that home with Teal and her minions? I mean, I could repeat some, but I'd love to hear you say it, because some of the things I've heard you say about what the goings on in there were just left me, again, was one of the reasons why I contacted you. Actually, there's a bigger reason why I contacted you as well, and you already know the reason. I'll mention that later. So what was some of the big red flags that you saw that you're like, okay, cognitive dissonance over, something's really wrong here?
Yes, the first time I really snapped out of it was when she tried to convince me to commit suicide. That was the first wake up, real abrupt wake up. And then there was some other things with aliens and an extraterrestrial agenda and implanting memories in people, and that was another huge red flag and wake up call as well. So I don't know which one you want me to start with.
Wow, let's elaborate. Let's elaborate on the suicide thing. That is, I think that one definitely needs to be spoken about, Cameron. So, as I understand it, she wanted to make you think there was something very wrong with you when you started sort of being alerted of something. So, yes, please spill on that one.
Yes, and this is just a preface. I mean, she was somebody, being around her was like being on a constant drama trauma cycle. I mean, this is a woman whose emotions shift. She's capricious. I mean, she just, from one minute to the next, her emotions are up and down. So that was pretty standard. You get used to that, but then you have this person that's also kind of keeping you off balance, making little comments, kind of trying to make you doubt yourself all the time and keeping you in the fight or flight response mode. So at one point that was just a preface on what day-to-day life was around her, but at one point she actually recommended that I read a book called The Woman Code, which is, it's just a standard book that talks about women's bodies, your hormone levels, your blood sugar, all kinds of stuff that you go through that, basically just helps you scientifically understand what could be going on or what is going on. So I actually, at night when I would go home, that's what I read the book, and I'm pretty quick reader, so I read it in a couple days, and then I came back over to the house, and she had explained to me that her cat, the cat's name was Cosmos. He was a holographic soul projection from the planet Sirius, and he would come up to me, and he'd, like how cats will just kind of headbutt people and rub their heads on people. Well, she claimed that he was doing that because he was communicating with me to tell me that my blood sugar was off. So he was sending me telepathic images of my pancreas to let me know that my blood sugar was off. So, I found that I was like, oh, that's interesting. I just read about blood sugar and its effect on the body in that book you recommended me read. And she completely just flipped out. And one of her disorders that she has is, on top of being hypersensitive and having shifting moods and all the rest of it, is this borderline personality disorder where she just flips a switch and goes on a tirade. And so she had me in a room with the door closed with a bunch of people around me. Like, I'd say, okay, it was Graciela, Flavia, Jared, and I can't remember if it was just, and Teal, actually. It was 4 people in a little room. I don't think Blake was in the picture. He was at work. But in any case, she had them surround me, and she's sitting there berating me for all of my shortcomings, telling me that I don't trust her, that I sent an energetic dagger by saying that, and then I'm questioning her integrity, and then she immediately jumps to telling me that I am suicidal. I said, what? I'm not suicidal. I've never been suicidal in my life. And she said, well, what if I told you you're passively suicidal instead? And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And she said, well, I can see your thoughts, and I can see your vibrations, and I can see everything about you. And I know that you're a match to breast cancer, and you have stomach ulcers. And she's just going on and on and on about how toxic of a person I am. And so by the end of this, she's like, you're just uncommitted to life, and you really need to get in your car. Seriously, she compared me to this woman that was her client who actually did kill herself, Leslie. And she compared me to her and told me that, I'm just like her, and I really need to decide whether or not I'm committed to life, and I should get in my car and go drive, and go get in your car, go drive. And I want you to go right now and go decide whether or not you're committing to life. And then she goes out the door, and I'm just in tears, just about like to lose it, because I was so upset. I couldn't even believe this just happened. I'm like, what the hell did I even do? Are you serious? Did this just happen? And everybody's just like kind of sitting around watching, and nobody really says anything. And so I'm getting ready to leave. I'm just like going to go. And one girl says, as Teal left, because Teal went to go, I don't know what she did, to pick up her son or something, or with her boyfriend, they took off. And I was going to leave. And this girl's like, oh, wow, she's really hard on you. But they waited until, she leaves to say anything, because of that cult dynamic where everybody just turns into kind of an apath and it joins into the groupthink attack mode, follow the leader type of thing. So I ended up going and driving my car over to my apartment, thinking I was going to pack up and move back home. At that point, that was a huge wake-up call for me. And after that point, all the trust factor was gone, because I realized, I had my suspicions. I could tell she wasn't right. I could tell things were Looney Tunes, but now I know she's clinically insane, and there's no coming back from that. You lose all respect. That I just went from like thinking that she was, she could possibly be some sort of extrasensory, to thinking that she's just mentally insane. And I felt sorry for her at that point, and then that's when her boyfriend called me. She didn't call me or anything, but he called me and freaked out. I guess then, I think it was within the next day, freaked out and was like texting me, calling me, and said, are you okay? I just want you to know, Teal was really upset when you left. Of course, for their benefit, she acted very upset. She was really concerned, and at the time, I'm just like, well, the audacity to think that I'm going to actually kill myself because she told me to, for one. And then for two, I'm like, man, she's really messed up. This is not
So they were just trying to
normal.
bring you back into the fold as well by playing good cop in a way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Totally the manipulation factor. But after that, all bets were like the trust factor is completely gone. There's no foundation. You can't be a loyal devotee when somebody does that. But I think on some people it might be part of the breaking down process in the cult indoctrination. But for myself, it really put me on a different track at that point. But
Well,
that was the first.
For a few people, it didn't work though. They weren't as alert as you. They actually did kill themselves. Is this
one woman did?
People? Okay, yeah.
One woman did, and then another person, I don't know how closely this person was involved with her, but another person on her Teal tribe, her online cult following, that follows her teachings. And she's very pro-suicide, and she's obviously, I mean, she's got all these conditions, these mental disorders, and she's been very vocal about her suicidal ideations. And she's told people that suicide is nothing but a reset button. And she's been known to say things like, that's why it feels so good to die. Like she knows what it's like, and that it'll all be better. If she doesn't like what's happening, she can always kill herself. I mean, these are all stories that she tells to vulnerable people. And this is a big part of why it's a dangerous situation for a mentally ill person to be leading a following of wounded individuals. But in any case, one woman actually did, that was clinically depressed and had gone to Teal for treatment. She ended up taking her life soon after Teal and her had a very serious sit-down talk, where Teal explained to her that she was uncommitted to life as well, and that there is nothing that anybody can do with this woman's vibration, and there's nothing that any healer can do with a person's vibration like this woman had, because this woman didn't listen to Teal's suggestions. And so she had convinced this woman that if Teal couldn't help her, nobody can. And the woman's like, you're right, I'm just done. And Teal has been very open and admitted all of this publicly, and she actually, for some reason, must think this makes her look good. But in any case, I find it very horrible and tragic that she's out there counseling people in this cold and cavalier manner, and it's dangerous. It's like handing somebody that's ready to off themselves a loaded gun, and I'm actually just floored that she's getting away with it.
Oh, absolutely. And masquerading as some sort of psychologist, that she's actually even able to help people that are that far gone as well, instead of doing the responsible thing and saying, look, you might need some serious clinical help. I'm sorry, I can't help you. But she's taking anyone on board, which is extremely irresponsible. And another thing that's, and I want to talk a little bit more about what you saw, but another thing that I heard you say is that she claims she's extraterrestrial. Some interviews that she has done it via claiming that she's been channeled by something else. But she claims that she's never read a book before. Is that right? That all this information she had as a child, Cameron, is that true?
Oh, absolutely. She claims that it's true, but it's not true at all. When I got there, there's this entire library of books in her house lining the entire living room wall of all these bookshelves of self-help books, psychology, pop psychology, astrology, what colors your aura, wisdom of the Enneagram, psychology, little tests, and then I mean, you name it, she's got everything. And then I looked at one of them, the What Color is Your Aura book. I was just flipping through it one day out of curiosity, and I mean, she's got very distinctive handwriting, and she wrote out these shadow house sheets, and I've seen all of her artwork and all. And I'm looking in the columns, and I'm like, what the heck? This is her handwriting, and she was profiling her family members and her friends, and she had written notes in this, and I'm like, what the hell would she need to do that for? Excuse me, like
profiling.
Yeah. Why would she need to write down what color her mom's aura is if she can see this? She came in with it. So that was the first, like, I don't know. First of all, she's reading books. Second of all, I see her handwriting in the margins. And then the third thing is this Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're a spiritual speaker, or I don't know if they're spiritual, but they're a law of attraction promoter. They really have been around since the 80s. It's Esther Hicks. And she sounds very similar to Teal as far as teachings go. It's almost identical, their philosophy.
So Teal's actually claiming that it's her own. She's had this guidance as a child, when the truth is a lot of her material is based on the Esther Hicks.
Yeah, exactly. And so I found out that the hard way as well. Basically, I didn't know anything about Abraham Hicks, but another boy came to live with us, and he actually introduced me to him, or to them, excuse me, introduced me to Abraham Hicks's videos, and that's when I started to really look into them. And Blake, Teal's right-hand man, again, ended up pulling out an entire DVD set of Abraham Hicks videos, DVDs that they had laying around the house. So I'm like,
she's a complete fraud. She's a complete and utter fraud.
Absolute charlatan. It's just like, and the more and more I find out about this woman, it boggles the mind. And I know I've been very careful before, but we have a lot more that's come to light recently about this, and I have no problems taking the gloves off at this point. So yeah,
So you can speak about that, Cameron?
I can speak about that if we're ready. I don't want to jump ahead, but yeah, I could speak about that.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, and I'll tell the audience one of the main reasons. I already mentioned the reason I found this woman very briefly, and then I found you, Cameron. So it's just something's just come up on my screen. Anyway, was the fact that she was claiming to be ritually, satanically abused. And
Yes.
her story was extraordinary. I'm like, this poor woman, and I felt so sorry for her. And I thought, what an amazing woman! She's like Superwoman. She's actually turned her life around. Now she's teaching others, and to find out that none of that is true. That she's actually still actually. I gotta. Can I handball this to you, Cameron? And are you able to speak about it publicly?
Sure.
Okay. Well, let's go.
Oh, okay. You want to hand it over to what's going on? What we found out?
Yeah, the fact that about the sexual ritual abuse, the
Yeah,
satanic abuse situation.
Yeah, it's horrible. This whole situation is just disgusting to me. We actually, while I was there, of course, they've released this poor man's name. Of course, she was using it as.
Hold on. We'll have to backtrack. We'll have to let the listeners know. She has accused a particular person of being her abuser.
Oh, yes. Right. She's accused a particular man, as a man with, she's called him a sociopath with multiple personality disorder and a satanic Mormon, a veterinarian in Idaho, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And
all right.
And total
so
backstory on him.
Yeah, so we'll give the backstory on her story about him. Again, a lot of the reasons why people find Teal is because of the sexual ritual satanic stuff. I'm just going to say the satanic stuff. And that's the reason why a lot of people kind of, that's the signpost to Teal. Now, it turns out that that isn't actually true. And the reason why I had to interview Cameron, and I've been given this opportunity to interview Cameron, because I am seriously pissed off. If it turns out that this woman's story is not true, until I hope you're listening, if your story is not true and you were not sexually, ritually, satanically abused, and it is all bullshit, there has to be some sort of recourse, and you're going to be held accountable. Because what hurts me is that the real people, the genuine victims of that kind of that kind of reality, are going to suffer because of your bullshit and your lies. So please, Cameron, this is why I contacted you, because, and I really thought it was very important that you get a voice on air. Although I know you're not a stranger to radio, you have done a radio show before, but you need more airtime, because people like her need to be exposed, because they are compromising true victims, the real victims.
I agree. It's vile. It's the most vile thing to be profiting off of other people's abuse stories and their pain, and that's what I see it as. I feel like she's profiteering off of a lot of vulnerable people's pain, and it's the sickest part about it is because she's also, not only is she putting the man's life in danger by falsely accusing him, and of course I understand there's some pre-existing conditions with this woman that make it difficult for her to be held culpable. She is completely mentally insane. We need to get that out of the way right now. We've had a former mental health professional actually evaluate her, and she has been, among other things, diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of schizophrenia and major depression. She's been diagnosed as antisocial personality disorder, which is it's also known as sociopathy and psychopathy. She's narcissistic personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. I mean, she claims that she has these other post-traumatic stress and dissociative, but those are highly doubted by this health professional that did a diagnosis on her. And the thing is these issues do not have to be caused by satanic ritual abuse like she's claiming, but it's a nice, convenient backstory to explain why she was insane her whole life. And the problem here stems from the fact that, like you said, there are actual people out there that do endure these horrific abuses, and somebody like this that's coming forward and claiming that they know all about it and they've experienced it and they're confabulating all this crap, it really just blows holes in anybody else's credibility when they try to come forward. So yes, you're absolutely right. I'm not saying that satanic abuse doesn't exist. I'm just saying that this didn't happen to this woman. And is she culpable? I'm not sure. I at this point, there seems to be, these are very incurable conditions that she has, and it doesn't seem that she could be treated effectively. So it's tough to say how much somebody like this is culpable for. But that aside, yeah, it's a very disgusting situation because this poor man's life that she's accused, she's putting him in danger because she's riling up a lot of kind of unstable people behind the scenes that could potentially go after this man. Her followers are rabid fanatics. Most of them.
Well, I've seen some of her followers write that they will literally die for her.
Yes.
And what's sad is, even if I heard this interview, Cameron, their cognitive dissonance will still probably be, and I'm hoping it's a 50-50 situation, that people that do follow her quite seriously hear this, do their own due diligence and see what she really truly is about, and back out now, get out now. And there's going to be those real devotees that really don't really care for the truth because they're in their own fantasy world, which she's facilitating. That the whole horror, she's actually mixing quite extraordinary psychology, like horror, beauty, spirituality. She's got this fantasy package. Now, she clearly understands human psychology. The woman, I would say, is she's no dum-dum. She's quite a genius, actually. But to be in the position she's in, you'd have to, as a prerequisite, have psychopathic tendencies to be at the level she's at now, and she's getting to the world stage. And I thought I need to dip in before this woman does get to the world stage. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about, so she had been accusing this man, and I'm thinking maybe we can talk about, because that's all part of the magazine as well, Cameron, the fact that you found her accuser.
Yes, I'm working for the magazine Ethics and the Modern Guru right now, and they actually are putting together quite an explosive expose on her with several articles and interviews that are going to really shine some light on what's going on here. And it's very needed, very necessary information. And we're not here, like you say, we're not going to win everybody over. Like Charles Manson has followers in jail. This isn't the goal. The goal is for people to make an informed decision. And if they choose to follow a mentally ill psychopath, and it's all, there's nothing you can do about that. But the point is to get this information out there and make it accessible, and that's what our magazine is trying to accomplish. And everybody on this team has the story. They've all been involved in cults, and it's not just about Teal Swan, but the platform is cult awareness, and she is a big player right now in the spiritual community. So I think that that was what we were doing in the magazine. And one of the most exclusive interviews is we've actually contacted her alleged abuser, and our representatives from the magazine have interviewed him. I've talked to him myself, personally been corresponding with him myself, and it's just going to shed some light on this whole situation. And she is an absolute, it's disgusting to me how much of a fabulous she is, and how dangerous this person, how dangerous she really is with these stories.
So if it turns out, okay, none of it's true, and I'd like to discuss some of the claims she has made. I mean, she was saying that he sewed her in a corpse. I mean,
yes.
Tell us some of her elaborated stories about what was done to her, Cameron.
I can even read you the quotes. I mean, seriously, this is not
Please
this is
do.
an open body of information here. Let me see here. So for the post-traumatic stress disorder that she claims to suffer from, most of it's, while we had the mental health professional look this over, one of her claims, one of the reasons that we doubt it, obviously, is not only because we've spoken to her abuser and it's not only implausible but impossible, but this is what she says. This is her exact quote. Her alleged abuser's best friend, she says, my alleged abuser's best friend was a mortician. So during his programming sessions, he liked to use bodies quite a bit. His friend was not the greatest of characters, so he could gain access to the bodies before they were cremated, and he would do a lot of really horrific stuff with me with that late at night. Like, he'd take me into the mortician's office late at night when I was about, I'd say, 8 years old. He ended up sewing me into a body and leaving me there for 12 hours. That's a quote that she has said publicly in videos and interviews, and this is completely physically impossible. We have evidence of this. The guy that is doing the diagnosis actually I wouldn't say him, one of our journalists actually is the one that contacted him, but they looked into this and contacted morticians and asked if this was physically possible, and it's the rib cage and the sternum and the chest cavity. No matter what you do, a body only has so much room, and they were asked if it's possible that an 8-year-old girl would fit inside of a corpse, and it's physically impossible. They laughed at it. Even if you were to empty out everything, it would not fit. And to be left there for 12 hours, it's just not possible. So these claims that she makes, I mean, they're completely unmoored from reality. You can't back any of this up, but people are so caught up in the satanic story and the emotion of it, and they look at her and she's just so believable. This poor woman, look at all she suffered, and they completely it doesn't even register that that's physically impossible. So this is the kind of, and part of it is it her delusion. She actually believes these things are true. So when she's speaking, you're not picking up on the normal body cues that you would pick up on in a like somebody who's lying and knowingly lying. A lot of times it just comes across so genuine because she actually
like a good politician, a good politician. And when I say good, I don't mean because they're good. I mean because they're good at the BS.
Exactly.
Now, so what other claims did she make that was done to her in her young years of being a victim of satanic abuse?
Oh gosh, the list is endless. Let's see here if we can find the list. She claims she was electroshock programmed using Nazi Germany style mind control, where she can no longer do laundry because he gave her electroshock treatments when she touched a washer or dryer.
Oh, which is really convenient because everyone does her washing.
Precisely. And same with broken glass. She can't do dishes lest she breaks glass and it might trigger her into a seizure. But, she can drink out of glasses. She just can't wash them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So you've got these very convenient claims whenever she needs to excuse something or, manipulate somebody. So there's a lot of that going on in general. But, I mean, the stories, she says she was prostituted out of hotels and covered in animal blood and used in rituals to lure immigrant children. She was used to lure immigrant children to be burned alive and in satanic rituals and tortured. And she was, aborted 3 times by this abuser who raped her.
So she also claims that she saw children die?
Oh, yes. She said she saw countless children die in an interview that she did on Fox News. And no bodies were ever found, of course. No evidence was ever found, but she claims.
So if they're not going to believe a beautiful woman like Teal Swan on Fox News, what about when a real victim comes out and speaks about their experience, which a lot of them just do not have the courage to do so? She has just compromised that whole situation. She has. Do you see my anger?
Yeah. She has completely compromised it. Nobody is going to be taken seriously. They're going to be laughed. I mean, she's playing off the satanic panic that happened in the 80s. These stories are like in books already, and this has all been done before. That she's pulling.
These people, and Cameron, these people already have a lot of difficulty being believed.
Yeah,
and she's just helped move that along. I don't know if this is her mastermind or she's got handlers to precipitate this kind of to make it seem like these people don't exist if they come out to say that they had been sexually, ritually, satanically abused, that it's not real, it's not true. I mean, the layers of what the ramifications of all this, like of just her doing what she's doing, the ramifications are extraordinary. I think, like you said before, Cameron, this isn't definitely just this is your direct experience with Teal, and that's why we're talking about Teal. Personally, I think she's one of the most dangerous, and I'll tell you why. Because one, she's very beautiful, so she's in like Flynn just with that alone. The fact that although I must agree her words and her body language aren't congruent, she's very well spoken and she can execute an idea very, very well. She ticks every box for the perfect spiritual guru, and she's running with it. And I'm just hoping to hinder her popularity. Now, the people that are already involved with her, then if you're too far gone, then so be it. But I think Cameron and I's objective here is to really help people to, don't go past go. Don't go past that next stage. Hopefully, you'll hear this before you plan on going any deeper with her body of work. It's really important that people hear this. A lot of her claims are being proven that are not true.
Exactly. You've got her saying from age 6 to 19, she was tortured physically and sexually, raped, deprived of food, forced to undergo 3 abortions, fathered by her abuser. She was photographed for sadomasochistic pornography, sold for sex out of outdoor gas station bathrooms, kept in basements and in a hole in the ground in this man's backyard. Electroshock therapy, isolation, and she claims that this was all done while, in the middle of the night, while her parents had no idea. I mean, she was raised in a totally mom and dad at home, younger brother, and nobody noticed any of this was going on. I mean, seriously. And not only that, we actually spoke to the alleged abuser, I should say, and he's had a wife for 35 years. This man has been doing his own thing. He hasn't had any problems on his record criminally. He's a completely normal guy, and she's never mentioned once on record this man had a wife. She's actually made claims that he was a lifelong bachelor, and made him out to seem like some wackadoo that nobody that people would not know. I mean, he's not like that at all. And so for me, it just doesn't make sense that he abducted her in the middle of the night, did all of these things to her, got her back to her house in the morning, and her parents never noticed a thing. I mean, It's just ridiculous.
Oh, it is. It's a complete joke. It really is. And also, if you can share the experience you had of when you were all sitting around the dinner table and she had one guy convinced that he was an ex-reptilian, and basically because he felt so guilty about it. You tell the story. I thought this was amazing.
Well, to preface, she's obviously, I mean, she claims that she's in touch with extraterrestrial beings and she can see her higher self and she could communicate with her higher self and talk to Jesus and Buddha in the ether. So, of course, she's telling people that she's part of some extraterrestrial council like Greenpeace, and she came down here with a mission to raise human awareness. And this is part of the narcissism, is she needs to convince herself that she's associating with very important people. So she tries to convince everybody in her inner circle. Not only does it serves 2 purposes, that she can manipulate them to get them to work for her and buy into her vision, but then also it makes her feel special that she's associating with high prestigious aliens, basically. So she convinced everybody in the group that their higher self was some sort of an extraterrestrial, and her boyfriend at that time she told him was a reptilian, and she described what he looked like and said that he had, he was 7 or I don't remember how tall she said he was. I think she said he was maybe she said he was 12 feet tall, and he had a big head, like a bone head dress thing around him, and he was considered sort of like a high-ranking reptilian, but he was a rogue, and he was here to show that the reptilians, that humans weren't all bad. And so basically she convinced him that that's why he came here, was to basically go on his own rogue mission and bring information back to that reptilian hive to show that humans weren't all bad. And in the meantime, she convinced him that he had a bunch of gray aliens that were working for him on this rogue mission, and that the grays were harvesting information from 6,000 abductees, and all of these abductees of Fallon's were going to be coming through at some point.
Cameron, hold that thought. We're just going to go to a break just for a couple of minutes. We'll all mute up and continue with that when we get back. You're listening to, at this moment, I'm Helena Phoenix filling in for Angela Black.